Welcome to the UsableCash.com demonstration. The two main features are the usable cash and the average minimum. Other features include reserve funds, ways to save, and test new bill. First off, the usable cash is the leftover day-to-day available amount after all the entered expenses. Next, the average minimum. Income is not necessarily defined as your actual paycheck. However, it is the UsableCash.com calculations based on the expenses you enter. It is the very least amount you'll need each pay period to cover your entered expenses over 5 rolling years. Step 1. Enter bills. Start off by clicking on each expense category. Within each category are suggested subcategories, with the last being Other to select your own category. Keep in mind these 3 helpful expense definitions when entering your expenses. Necessity expenses are those that have due dates, which possibly incur late fees or penalties and may affect your credit score if not paid on time. Mark an expense as a necessity here. Inevitable expenses have no specific due dates. They are unexpected, bound-to-happen expenses. Use the Reserve Funds feature to set aside small amounts each pay period for inevitable expenses and credit yourself to avoid using high-interest credit cards. And the incidental expenses is for everything else, such as groceries, entertainment, vacations, etc. These expenses is what your personal usable cash is used for. Viewing your usable cash amount will be your light bulb moment. First, enter all of the necessity expenses. Second, enter your income and view your usable cash and average minimum on the My Budget page. Then third, add the optional reserve funds and incidental expenses. Following these steps will help you to avoid over-projecting. Just 2 more ways to stay positive. Number 1, avoid an overdraft when entering amounts for expenses. Enter the very most you expect to pay, because spending less than projected simply results in more usable cash. And number 2, if your income is ever going to be less than what you need to cover your expenses, for example an unpaid vacation, you may need to enter that downtime as an expense. And if the usable cash stays positive, you're good to go. And later you'll see the importance of filling out each applicable field. For how often, enter the starting on date as the date you actually need the funds available to pay out of your account. But for a past due bill, enter the last date it should have paid out. This will help you to get caught up. At first, you'll need to save or skip through each category. And in each subcategory, you can click Add Similar to add a similar expense. The reserve funds work just like a savings within your checking account. Simply input what you want to save up for and the amount. Then each pay period, this amount is reserved from your usable cash and bank balance for these inevitable expenses. Step 2. Enter income. The first income step is deciding on a checking account option. With the 2 checking account option, any and all monies are deposited into account A, and this account pays all other expenses besides your bills. Each payday, transfer at least the average minimum into account B, which is for bills and building reserve funds. Then it's out of sight, out of mind. Stashing funds into account B keeps your money safe for when your expenses are actually due. But UsableCash.com works just as well with one account. Step 2 of the income process, just enter the basic information. The source and how often is all we need at this point. And if self-employed, simply enter the date you plan on depositing or transferring into your bill account. And when entering amounts for income, enter an amount that is equal to or greater than the UsableCash.com average minimum or up to the very least expected per payday or per transfer. But never over-project your income. Step 3, Income Details. This is where you'll find the average minimum. Enter an income amount here that is equal to or greater than this minimum amount. Or simply add additional income. Also at first, if any expenses fall short of a full bill cycle, the average minimum may seem higher than usual. But once the first bill or bills pay out, the average minimum resets. Step 3, My Budget. Each time you access your My Budget page, you'll need to reconcile with your bank. Enter today's available bank balance, then check off all the expenses and income that have cleared from that balance. If an item cleared your balance but does not appear on this list, remove it next on the My Budget page by scrolling down to View Budget, checkmark the item, and click Remove. And you can enter your savings balance here. However, it is optional and no calculations are based off of this balance. It's just for you to keep track of. After reconciling with your bank, you'll be able to view your usable cash. This is your leftover day-to-day cash that you'll have access to use after all your bills are taken into account and the date it's available until, which makes it easier not to rely on your actual bank balance, since your bank balance will appear inflated. However, it is simply increasing to cover your entered expenses and reserve funds. This personal, usable cash feature is what helps you to live beyond paycheck to paycheck. To add or edit an expense, click My Info and click the icon that applies, or use the search feature to quickly find the expense, then click Edit to delete or make changes to this bill. And you can also edit an expense while you're in the process of reconciling with your bank. Add or edit income directly on the My Budget page here, or click Update Income to change the date, how often, or add income. Scroll down to view your budget, which defaults to 2 months, but by clicking Update Range, you can view up to 5 years of your financial future. By entering remaining payments while entering your expenses, the bill drops out of your budget once it pays off. And when the final payment appears on the Reconcile page, check off that the payment has cleared and click Save, then verify that the last payment was actually reached. But if not, simply update the remaining payments here. And if the bill has paid off, notice the average minimum resets. But by stacking the same paid-off amount onto the next lowest balance expense helps you to get out of debt quicker if you maintain the same average minimum income. You'll see the reserve funds deducting out of your budget on the My Budget page following each main income's payday. As each payday passes, the available amount increases, building up a pool of cash ready to use when needed. But don't forget to enter any used amount here and note the new available amount. You can always reset the reserve funds back to 0. However, it will begin saving again incrementally on the very next main income's payday. But to remove it altogether, click Manage Reserve Funds and click Delete. For a one-time expense, check the usable cash first, then add the payee, the date you want the funds to be available, and the amount in the outgoing field. But if you skip entering the date, it will default to today's date. This works best when entering checks, as this place holds the funds from your bank balance and usable cash until it clears. No more bouncing checks. But for a one-time incoming, enter the date you plan on actually depositing or transferring the funds. If you need to make changes to an upcoming bill and only the very next bill, after clicking Edit, make the updates, and click Update Next Bill Only. Now the expense has an asterisk here instead of Edit, and that's because it's now located in the one-time outgoing. And by checking and unchecking enabled on any one-time outgoing or incoming, you can see how that item affects your usable cash. And you'll see the very next bill was the only one updated. And click here to minimize or maximize these features. Click View Upcoming Bills to see all the entered expenses and their very first due dates, and you can also print this page. The Ways to Save feature shows all of the entered expenses minus the necessities. You can change a bill to a necessity and click Refresh to see the amount you could save on a monthly basis just by eliminating unnecessary expenses. Any expense marked as paid with savings account will appear on the Reconcile page, but just as a reminder to pay that expense with your savings account when it's due. For any open paid-off accounts that you still use occasionally, enter that bill with a starting on date as 10 to 15 days before the due date, and enter 1 cent as the amount to simply placehold the date as a reminder. Then, before checking it off on your Reconcile page, check your balance with the creditor and edit the bill with at least the minimum due and click Update All Bills. Or enter the total balance due and click Update Next Bill Only to pay it off in full. That is, of course, if there's enough usable cash. Either way, after it's paid off, switch back to the 1 cent reminders. And anything that was not verified on the Reconcile page that are due on or before the current date will appear below in pink and will remain pink until you mark them as cleared. The Undo button will only undo the very last action. Use the search bar to locate any date, expense, income, amount, if an amount differs or stays the same, type of paid with, paid automatically or not, and anything that you typed in the notes section while entering expenses. This will be helpful if you ever need to update a payment method. If at any time a negative balance results, a message pops up and tells you just how much you'll need to deposit and by which date to avoid an overdraft. Or view ways to satisfy negative balances here, on the My Budget page, and on the About page. And on the My Budget page, you'll see the first negative balance and the largest negative balance. And the Test New Bill feature. You'll see just what the expense will look like before adding it to your budget, with and without changing the average minimum needed per pay period. Then click View Results. This gives you a clear picture, making it easier to decide if your current entered income is enough. And only adjusting the main income here, any other income adjustments can be made on the My Budget page. To keep this bill, click Set as Main Income and make this bill permanent. And notice the new average minimum, or click Undo, Close Summary, and Remove Test Bill. In summary, all of the entered income and expenses are simply placeholders from your current available bank balance for 5 consecutive years, so you'll always have a clear financial picture. So don't forget to edit your bills as needed and log in and reconcile with your bank often, as your account requires your interaction to be accurate. And because we are confident you'll find UsableCash.com to be invaluable and won't know how you lived without it, following your 60-day free trial, lock in your low introductory subscription fees for just $5 per month, or save 25% by paying annually. And no worries, we'll calculate that right into your budget for you just in case. Also, the trial starts only once you create a budget. In fact, we won't even ask for a payment method until you log in after the trial period ends. And when you share with your friends, you can earn unlimited free months once they finish their trial. Collect and share your success on social media, or share an email link to receive credit. Add UsableCash.com to any smartphone's home screen simply by accessing the internet, selecting Menu, and Add to Home Screen. UsableCash.com is totally flexible. Remember to update often and stay positive.